The Tennessee Titans cap off the 2024 NFL Draft with a bang, adding multiple starters and some fantastic depth. I'll recap day 3 on today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's bonus edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is a recap of day 3 of the NFL Draft. The Tennessee Titans had 5 selections, and I thought they did a fantastic job with what they had available to them. We're going to go through every single player that they added, their skill set, how they fit within the team, all of that on today's show. Before I get into it, thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. I have been absolutely pumping out content all draft weekend long, instant reaction videos, recap videos every night. If that's not worth a subscribe and a like, I don't know what is. So make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. Again, I'm going to have a ton of great content coming for you guys this week as well. Tomorrow's show is going to be draft grades for every player and then my overall draft grade for the Titans as well. On the next show, I'm going to dive into each individual player's skill set and how they can help the Tennessee Titans this season. The next show, I'm going to look at how all of these players factor into the Tennessee Titans' long-term options. And then to cap off the week, we'll look at the remaining needs on the team and what veteran free agents are still available. So a ton of great content coming your way. Again, get subscribed, stay subscribed. But the Titans kicked off day 3 with what might be my favorite pick of the draft for them. I mean, obviously, Latham is a more important pick. Everybody knows that. Some of these later guys could pop. But I love the addition of Cedric Gray, linebacker out of North Carolina. 6'1" and some change, 234 pounds. He's only 21 and a half years old. This is a guy who creates turnovers. All right, he's forced 11 turnovers, 5 interceptions, 6 forced fumbles, plays with incredible instincts. He just reads the field and understands where he needs to be. He is a football player, all right? Has great play speed. The time speed is what knocked Cedric Gray. That's why he fell to the 4th round. His time speed wasn't as good as people thought that he was going to run. But when you watch him out on the field, he plays at a different level of speed that allows him to have sideline to sideline range all over the place. And we've talked about the green dot linebacker. All right, what does green dot linebacker mean? If you don't know what the green dot is, that's the little green dot on the back of the helmet. What that signifies is that player can have communication with the coaching staff. So typically it's going to be one of your linebackers, and that's who calls the plays to the rest of the defense. So the coach will send in the play to the green dot linebacker, and then the green dot linebacker will tell everybody what the play is and what their alignment is and what their responsibilities are, and make sure that everybody's in the proper position before the play starts. So a very important role. And having a player like Cedric Gray, who is very instinctive, very smart, very experienced, he's a guy who could do that from day one. So in my opinion, Cedric Gray is a starting linebacker for the Tennessee Titans immediately. Look, you let Kenneth Murray be the dog off the leash. Don't worry about lining people up. Don't worry about getting everybody set. You just be ready to hunt, Kenneth Murray. You're going downhill. You're slamming into people. And part of the reason that I really love Cedric Gray is not just necessarily his skill set. It's how he fits with Kenneth Murray. So I have talked about how Kenneth Murray can be your take-on linebacker. So think about it this way. There are roles that these linebackers will play: strong side linebacker, weak side linebacker. And typically what you want is you want your strong side linebacker to be a guy who goes downhill and meets the lead blocker in the hole. So think if you had a fullback coming or a puller coming from the backside, you need a linebacker that's going to be big, physical, strong, and run in there and hit that head on and stop that lead blocker immediately in his tracks. Boom. All right, well, if your take-on linebacker is doing that, who is going to be the linebacker that's chasing behind him to make the tackle on the running back. That can be Cedric Gray. So you have Kenneth Murray fly through the hole, be your take-on linebacker to take on that lead blocker, and then you have a guy like Cedric Gray, who is a rangy sideline-to-sideline linebacker with athleticism, who is a former safety who converted to linebacker, and you have him now to do that. So green dot, instincts, play speed, range, and you guys obviously know I care a lot about character. Cedric Gray was named captain 3 straight years in high school, and then his final 2 years at North Carolina. So he's a guy who earns respect from his teammates. Now, what I will say about Cedric Gray, 6'1", 230. He needs to add some strength. He needs to add some power, all right? At his size, he struggles with shedding blocks if guys get on him. But that's why I'm saying he is your weak side linebacker, where Murray is the guy, boom, going in to take on the lead blocker. And hopefully Cedric Gray doesn't have to deal with a lot of people on him. And I will say this, and I know you guys are going to start a riot in the comments. I understand. But when you have a guy like T'Vondre Sweat, who can take up 2 blockers at once, and you have a guy like Jeffrey Simmons, who can take up 2 blockers at once, and then you have a take-on linebacker like Kenneth Murray going in there to hit somebody head-on, that gives you a good chance of keeping Cedric Gray clean so he can use that play speed, he can use those instincts, and he can go make tackles on ball carriers. All right, so that's what you like to see. Do want to mention, too, Cedric Gray has really good coverage instincts. Again, very instinctive, smart player. Maybe he's not a guy who's going to man up on people, but dropping back in zone, understanding where to be, again, creating turnovers, 11 turnovers forced. That is all stuff that Cedric Gray is going to be able to do. So I love Cedric Gray as a player and as a prospect. Where the Titans got him, I thought was great value. And not only that, but his fit within the defense and within the front seven and how his skill set meshes with the other players already in the Titans skill set. I think it's absolutely important. And again, the Titans needed a starting linebacker. Like Jack Gibbons is, a pet player of mine. All right. I think Jack Gibbons gets a bad rap. He's the NWI of the defensive side of the ball. Okay. He just is in the right spot, does his job. No, he's not the most athletically gifted. It's obvious. You see people run away from Gibbons. He's not going to be able to stick with some of these special running backs and tight ends and man coverage and stuff like that. But he's just a smart, instinctive player who knows where to be. But if we're keeping it 100 here, Jack Gibbons probably doesn't need to be a starting linebacker in the NFL. He's probably just a good third linebacker who you can count on if injuries strike. So having Cedric Gray, who I think can be an immediate starter for the Tennessee Titans, to come out of the gate on day 3 at pick 106 in the 4th round and add that sort of player to the roster, incredibly important for the Titans to start off day 3 on the right foot, and I think they absolutely did that. So Cedric Gray, really big fan, linebacker out of North Carolina, great fit for the Tennessee Titans. But the Titans also added some great depth, and I think there's one other sneaky starter that the Titans picked in the 6th round. May not be a starter on offense or defense, but a starter nonetheless. We're going to dive into the 5th round and 6th round pick for the Tennessee Titans right now. Before we do, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats, they might not have the time and the resources to hire. That's why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Titans fans, let's continue today's recap of day 3 of the 2024 NFL Draft. I thought the Titans did a great job starting out, adding a starting linebacker in Cedric Gray out of North Carolina. But I really like the additions that they made in the 5th round, 6th round, 7th round as well. I thought it was a really strong finish to the Titans, even if they didn't have a bunch of top 100 picks to play with. Before we continue breaking down the 7th round, 6th round, 5th round picks for the Titans, I do want to thank you guys again for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round. I told you guys at the beginning of the show, I'm going to have a full draft grade breakdown out tomorrow. I'm going to have how these guys fit immediately, how these guys fit in the long term for the Titans, talk about remaining needs and veteran free agents that are available at those needs later in the week. So much content coming your way. We're in a stretch here of about 14, 15 straight days of Locked On Titans podcast with about 20 episodes. You're not going to beat that kind of coverage anywhere else, and it's certainly not going to be for free. So make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. But going into the next round, 5th round pick, the Titans add a guy who they've been very interested in throughout the process. They had a few meetings with this player, and it is cornerback Jarvis Brownlee Jr. out of Louisville. Look, he's a little undersized, 5'10", 194 pounds. All right. But he is a physical, feisty player. He's great in press coverage, jamming people at the line of scrimmage. There's a highlight that he had from this past year of college football where he gave him the Sneed. What L'Jarius Sneed did to Tyreek Hill in the playoffs, that's exactly what Jarvis Brownlee Jr. is doing to cornerback or doing to wide receivers at the college level. Great in press coverage, great at the line of scrimmage, getting physicality and hands on wide receivers, man-to-man coverage. That's what he wants to do. And ball production. 6 interceptions, 28 passes defended. This is a guy who will play physically, will assault you at the line of scrimmage, and if the ball comes his direction, he is going to make a play on it. Now, here's the reality. Jarvis is not the fastest guy. All right, he doesn't have deep speed. If you get Jarvis Brownlee on I keep wanting to say Jarvis Landry, but if you get Jarvis Brownlee on an island and he's got to run deep with wide receivers, he's going to get toasted. All right, there's no way around it. He's going to get beat. He has to beat you at the line of scrimmage with his physicality and his feistiness. All right, that's where he wins. If you beat him clean off the line of scrimmage, it could spell trouble. Now, one other thing to consider is when you add that into that conversation, he is grabby. He likes to grab onto you, and that can create penalties as well. But who does that sound like? L'Jarius Sneed. So he's going to learn from somebody in L'Jarius Sneed who plays that same physical, grabby, hands-on style, and that is going to be a valuable, valuable resource in schooling up Jarvis Brownlee Jr. at the next level of how to play that style without constantly getting penalties and not getting beat deep constantly. So really like the tutelage that he can get from L'Jarius Sneed. One other thing we have to factor in here is Jarvis Brownlee Jr. Okay. I keep thinking that I'm saying Landry, even when I don't. But he's a guy who's probably going to be a nickel cornerback at the next level. I don't think that he has the length and the size to play outside at 5'10". I just don't think that that's the perfect spot for him. Can he do it? Yeah, he could probably play a little bit outside if you asked him to. He's a guy who's never going to back down from a challenge, ever. But at the same time, he's probably best served in the nickel. And I know a lot of you guys are thinking, wait a minute, we have Roger McCreary on the inside. Okay, this is where I tell you, he may not be a starter this year, but the Titans need depth. Someone's going to get hurt. This isn't Madden. We don't play with the injuries turned off here. So there's good, and especially if we keep it honest, Awuzie had some injuries. L'Jarius Sneed, the knee issue that we've talked about. There is the chance that those guys maybe miss a couple of games during the season. And as Denard Wilson has said, you can never have too many corners. All right, you can never have too many cornerbacks in the NFL. And think about it. If the Titans play dime and they want to do it with 4 cornerbacks, if you have Sneed and Cheeto on the outside, and then you have Brownlee and Roger on the inside with 2 safeties back deep and 2 linebackers and 4 defensive linemen, well, now you're doing, 1 linebacker and then 4 defensive linemen. But now Now you have a good set of 4 corners. And ask yourself this. Do you want Trey Avery or Eric Garrower playing a lot this year? Because I don't. So I would much rather have Jarvis Brownlee Jr. as the 4th cornerback for the Titans over Trey Avery or over Eric Garrower or over Caleb Farley as well. So think about it like that, So you got to have depth, and getting starters this late in the draft is hard to come by anyway. So I really like the pick of Jarvis Brownlee Jr. Moving forward, though, that was the Titans' 5th round pick. Now in the 6th round, maybe the most controversial pick of the entire draft, according to the masses. You guys know what my most controversial pick of the draft is. I don't got to get into that again. But a lot of people were upset when the Tennessee Titans selected Jha'Quan Jackson, wide receiver out of Tulane. Like, some people were upset. People wanted Johnny Wilson, the mammoth wide receiver out of Florida State. Some people wanted Brendan Rice, Jerry Rice's son, out of USC. Some people really, really wanted Malik Washington, the 5'8" slot receiver out of Virginia. And I understand that there are other options that you wanted, but I simply was not as high on Malik Washington as everybody else. When we talked about Malik Washington during the wide receiver preview, I got asked a ton about Malik Washington during the pre-draft process. I just was not as high on Malik. I think Malik Washington could be a fine player, no doubt about it. But I'm not so hell-bent on Malik Washington that I don't think that Jha'Quan Jackson could be just as good of a player. And here's a reality, too. The Titans need returners. The Titans desperately need a punt returner, and that is exactly what Jha'Quan Jackson is going to do from day one. That's why I said the Titans got multiple starters on day 3. It's because the first starter is Cedric Gray, but the second starter is Jha'Quan Jackson at punt returner. He will start there, I believe. All right? And he's also got additional value as a potential slot wide receiver for the Titans. Jha'Quan Jackson, again, out of Tulane, 5'9", 188 pounds. Obviously a smaller guy. That's why he's a slot guy, punt return guy. But he is not, a lot of these guys, like Kyle Phillips, for example. Kyle Phillips is quick. He's not fast. Jha'Quan Jackson is quick and he's fast. He's a guy who can't just, it's not just he's beating you in short areas with change of direction. He's going to beat you deep with speed vertically as well. So not only do you get quickness out of the slot, but you get speed out of the slot as well. And he's a guy, you get the ball in his hands in space, and he's going to make you miss in yards after catch opportunities. So quick and fast, good with the ball in his hands, can be a gadget player within the offense in the slot, and excellent returner who averaged over 20 yards per return on kickoffs his entire career. This is a guy who was a kick returner basically every single year of his career. And you look at Malik Washington was only a kick returner his final year of college. So the Titans looked at that and said, okay, we're going to take the guy who has more experience as a returner. Now, I got to keep it honest. Jackson will make you miss, but he's not going to break tackles. He's too small, doesn't play with power. He's not going to win contested catch situations. He's not going to go up over the top of people and get the ball. He needs to get the ball in space. He did have 6 muffed returns, which is going to make people shiver, I know, but when you return the ball as much as he did, that's not necessarily a killer, in my opinion, when you look at the raw numbers. The real thing that you got to worry about here is he's had injuries. Labrum issue early in his college career, had an ankle issue and missed 3 games. He's a smaller guy. And like I say with Kyle Phillips, smaller players are going to get hurt more often. But I think my big takeaway here is this guy could be the Titans' starting kick returner and punt returner from day one. He can grow into a role within the offense as a shifty, fast guy in the slot. And he's best friends with Tyjae Spears. They were together when he got drafted. So I joked on Twitter, but I might be serious here. Ran Carthon loves Tyjae Spears so much that he drafted his best friend. So is that a joke? I don't know. It may be real. We can never know. But again, this is another guy like Jarvis Brownlee, like Cedric Gray, who is a football guy through and through. All right, character, football first type player. And I think that's pretty important. But overall, my big takeaway with Jha'Quan Jackson is watch out Kyle Phillips, because they're going to be fighting for a roster spot. Excited to see that happen. But we'll talk about what the Titans did in the 7th round. Got some athletes, got some guys I'm excited about. So we'll talk about that next. Before we do, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I have a competitive side. It's pretty obvious. We all do. But my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is you get to mess with your friends. You could charge them rent on your iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly, but you can also rob their vaults of all their riches and keep them to yourself. And now leaderboards show you who has the biggest Monopoly tycoon. It's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with your friends as well and people all over the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store and on Google Play. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast, breaking down day 3 of the 2024 NFL Draft for the Tennessee Titans. We talked about Cedric Gray, linebacker from North Carolina. I think he's a day 1 starter and a perfect fit next to Kenneth Murray in the Titans linebacker group. We talked about the Titans adding good depth with Jarvis Brownlee Jr. at cornerback, and then potentially a starting return man in Jha'Quan Jackson out of Tulane. Now I want to talk about these athletes that the Titans got in the 7th round. Titans had pick 242 and pick 252 in the bottom of the 7th round, and I think they really did a good job of getting guys who fit the culture, who fit the ethos, who fit what the Titans want to do on defense. Before I get into it, thanks again for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen. Again, tomorrow, I'm going to have my draft grades for the Tennessee Titans, a grade for each pick, and my overall grade for the draft class. Then we're going to talk about how the Tennessee Titans rookies fit with the team this year on Tuesday's show. Wednesday's show, we're going to talk about how they fit long-term for the Tennessee Titans. Thursday, looking at remaining needs in the veteran free agents that fit those needs. And then Friday, I'm going to have a mailbag. Follow me on Twitter at TicTacTitans. Send me your mailbag questions there, and I'll make sure to save those and read those to cap off this week of shows. We're in the midst of 15 straight days, 20-some podcasts, a ton of content for free. All I'm asking is you hit subscribe, hit like. Not that much to ask for the Titans content. But with that being said, at 242, the Tennessee Titans took safety James Williams out of Miami, linebacker for the Titans. He was a safety in college, but he's going to play linebacker at the NFL level. 21 years old. This guy was one of the most highly recruited, highest rated high school athletes in the country coming out of high school. 6'4", 230 pounds with 33-inch arms. This is an enforcer. All right. I will tell you, if I had to make a guess on which one of these guys, outside of Cedric Gray, who I think is going to be a starter on defense right away, if I had to guess which one of these guys is a starter for the Titans from day 1 on, I would pick James Williams. I think he has the potential to be a starter for the Titans. All right. I think he has that potential. It's a long shot. I'm saying, 5%, 10% chance, but there is a chance. This guy is a tone setter, a physical downhill hitter. He is going to smack you if you're in his vicinity. He's long. He's aggressive. He's powerful. He's a good blitzer. He can play man coverage on tight ends and run down the seam with him as a former safety. So love that. Now, if we're going to be honest, as I try to be, we got to look at the downsides here too. Why is this guy in the 7th round? Well, he plays incredibly undisciplined. He just does not read things well. He gets out of position. He overruns runs. He overruns routes. He just does not play with good discipline in his game. He is just flying all over the place, which is a good thing, but that over-aggressiveness also bites him in the butt a ton. All right? And that causes not only missed reads, overrunning things, but it causes penalties. He's a guy who draws penalties quite a bit. He's not going to be able to play man coverage on wide receivers, which is why he's moving to linebacker instead of safety in college. But I think that he could be a good dime linebacker. You know, you want Kenneth Murray to come off the field, and then you could play Cedric Gray, or you want Cedric Gray to come off the field. You could put James Williams in there, and I think that would make a ton of sense. And again, a highly rated recruit coming out of high school, and still only 21 years old. So there's a ton of potential here for the Tennessee Titans. Got to give credit to Sanchez Harley. He said, sounds like Kyle Hamilton in the Ravens. He says offense, but I know you meant defense. But again, I agree with that. He has the potential to be kind of a matchup, sub-package guy, playing over the middle of the field. I think that this is an excellent pick. I love the pick of James Williams in the 7th round. I love this pick. These are the type of guys. We talked about this in the pre-draft process. We talked about this during the Locked On Titans NFL Draft Preview Series. I want to take a chance on guys who are athletes at the end of the draft. And as a safety, his RAS score was in like the 4s. But as a linebacker, his RAS score is in the high 7s. So we're talking about a much better athlete at the linebacker position than he would be comparatively at the safety position. The last guy who the Tennessee Titans took in this draft class is Jaylen Harrell, the outside linebacker edge guy out of Michigan. All right. I just want to point out here, Alabama, Texas, North Carolina, Miami, Michigan. Ran Carthon stuck to his word. Brian Callahan stuck to his word when Brian Callahan said, our first draft class in Cincinnati, we wanted to take people in the college football playoffs. We wanted to take people from big-time Power 5 programs. Jarvis Brownlee as well. Louisville, although Louisville doesn't really seem on the same level as the other schools that I just mentioned. But again, these are guys at big-time. And you talk about Jaylen Harrell from Michigan, 6'3", 247 pounds, about to turn 22 years old. This is a guy who is known in the building as a tone setter, as a leader, as an alpha. He is a guy who's going to put in the work every single day. He has a team mentality. In Dane Brugler's The Beast, there was a quote from a coach that said he truly wants to be one of the 11. This is a team-first player who puts football first. And I think that's absolutely important when you're getting guys late in the draft. Good straight line speed from Jaylen Harrell. He's got speed to power where he's going to come off the line of scrimmage very quick, very explosive, try to get in your chest and push you back. He plays with physicality. He's not afraid to hit. He's a tough player, and he's a guy who's going to play a ton on special teams, which if you're getting drafted like Jarvis Brownlee Jr. in the 5th round, James Williams in the 7th round, Jaylen Harrell in the 7th round, these guys are going to have to play on special teams to carve out a career in the NFL. And they got guys who are more than willing to do that. So the downsides here, look, Jaylen Harrell is not the strongest guy. He's a little thin. He's narrow in the lower body. He doesn't play with good bend off the edge, so he's not going to be like this pure bendy pass rusher. And he needs to play with more pop in his hands. Again, strength is a problem, but get in that NFL program, get in the weight room with the Titans, get a new nutrition plan going now that you're a professional athlete and that's all you do. And you might be able to add some power, might be able to add some strength. And he's going to be a guy who's competing for a roster spot with Caleb Murphy and some of the other guys, Thomas Rush as well. He's going to be a guy competing with those for a roster spot. So overall, obviously, you guys know I have my trepidation on the early picks, but really like what the Titans did with their last 5 picks here outside of the top 100 on day 3 of the draft. So, again, Cedric Gray, linebacker out of North Carolina, I think is a day 1 starter. Jarvis Brownlee, feisty press man cornerback out of Louisville. I think he's going to be immediate needed depth in the 4th best cornerback on the team right away. Jha'Quan Jackson is going to be a starting returner for the Titans, in my opinion. James Williams is a project athletic linebacker who used to be a safety. And then Jaylen Harrell, just a smart, tough, physical football guy out of Michigan off the edge at the end of the draft. So That's my day 3 recap. Again, tomorrow I'm going to be breaking down my draft grades for every single pick and then the draft overall. Make sure that you guys tune into that as well. Got a great week of content coming for you here on the Locked On Titans podcast. But as always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.